Rain. Chaos Rain presents Are Foreign Blacks Helping ADOS Americans in America? This was broadcast May the 9th, 2021. Enjoy.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, murder, rape, theft, and all forms of atrocities that plague the world in which you live in today. What you're witnessing, we are living in a state of chaos. And it'll take a more greater or extremer chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today.
Good evening, black people. This is Chaos Rain here. I am back back again at this wonderful evening. I know y'all done missed me, but it is what it is. And today, we're going to have the conversation. And this is a sort of conversation that needs to be had. And as you know from the title, it speaks for itself. But before I go into tonight's discussion, I would like everybody to go to talkrealsolutions.com. Under talkrealsolutions.com, you'll see the 3-point plan for Black Power, Black Achievement. Also on the website, there's a list of Black established banks. And I think it has a credit union too. Last time I checked. Those are located on the website as well. I think now, way how the economy is going, there's not much Black banks around, depending where you live, your region, or your city, or your state. But if you're close to one that's depicted in the website and the directions, it'd be nice to put some of your money into another establishment that's quote-unquote Black-owned. So you'll find all the information necessary on talkrealsolutions.com. Also on the website, you will see the latest news, articles, reviews of current events going around here in America and globally. So, you know. And a side note, if y'all notice, with all of the craziness going on this year alone, and we're almost halfway part of 2021, I think it's going to get very much a little bit more hectic as we go into the possible summer of this year. We think that we're out of this madness, but I think we're going to still be in it for like another whole year eventually. I don't see the thing clearing up anytime soon. Well, things are going, but I could be wrong. We shall see. We shall see. You can now find my podcast / channel of Chaos Reign streams and shows, and even this one in particular, on Chaos Reign YouTube. You can find me on YouTube. Type in Chaos Reign, and that's the Chaos CHAOSREIGN. And you'll notice it's me because I have the serpent of the sea, which is the chaos symbol itself, which, I have made. Bing. So, it's easy to find me on Facebook as well, but that you can find me on YouTube. And on Facebook, I go by the name Eric Rain, so you could communicate with me over there as well. Also, I do have Twitter. My Twitter is at Chaos Reign 7. And not really much active on Twitter like I used to. But like I said, Twitter's another good outlet. So, if you could add me on Twitter, and we can go back and forth on Twitter as well. And, have some fun on Twitter as well. So, I'm no stranger to the social media. Oh, and another thing I do want to let everybody know, since you haven't heard from me in a while, I now have Clubhouse. So you can find me on Clubhouse, which I'll give you the name of it next time. I don't have it with me. But I am on Clubhouse, so I'm over there as well. And eventually you'll find some of my shows and podcasts descripted on WordPress and on Anchor, Spotify, etc., which I have my episodes as well. So I'm all over the place, people. So I'm not just one particular place. I think I told people before, since doing content on YouTube and doing podcasting now 5 years, that this is just a work in progress. And if I gave advice, if they ever want to step into a podcast journey, there's ways to get the best out of it and get the best bang out of your buck. But if you're not sure or certain on the direction of doing actual live broadcasting, the only advice I can give people is just to start wherever you can fit in. Don't be hesitant. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. Just do it. And the reason why I say just do it, and I got this from my good friend Ike, which is another good, wonderful man. He's on YouTube as well. If you want to know who he is, go back to my channel. I have a broadcast with him. He's very informative. He's a well-established businessman and artist. So check the broadcast I did with me and him back in December. But what I've learned doing anything, and I mean anything, there's fear in doing anything, especially if you're not certain where you want to take your ideals, your passion, or even you want us to do something different because you feel you have the talent. I'm going to tell you personally, and I want people to hear me good, that if you're going to do anything, and I mean anything, don't let fear stifle you from doing what you feel you're passionate to do or you want to do or you think of doing. Because one thing is evident, fear holds us back. It stagnates us. It keeps us in a perpetual hamster's wheel. No progression. Just straight stagnation. And you know, like many things, what happens when you're stagnant, you develop and create parasites. And parasites are the most deadliest form of insects or any form of thing that sucks and depletes your blood and all other forms of resource. So never be stagnant. Don't let the parasites develop and grow or be created for your stagnation. Be the ones that's always moving, like the river, like the move constantly. Try to expand, do other things. If you feel you want to create an app, don't be hesitant. Find a cheap, affordable online school and just get to work and just create something. Be resourceful. Take more of an action. And I'm going to say this personally, and this is, I'm not going to quote much from Ike, but he hit on the mark. A lot of people need, to be honest, when you deal with any marketing or you're trying to put business or fund money to advertisement, you're better off just, if you're going to start off small, just do it, and just do it to the best of your ability. Don't sit there wait to gather up some money. No, you do it now. You find somebody close to your family or someone that you're good at or you think you're good at and provide a service and see where it takes you. All these books that teach you marketing 101 or how to be entrepreneurs and all that stuff, to be fair, honestly, you guys, because I read a few of them, I went to seminars on them, and to be fair, honest, I don't see them any benefit of making anybody a better entrepreneur. If you're not an entrepreneur or you think of it, your best bet is to go and try things to see what works. Get something that's working, that's consistent, that a person likes and like what you do, and do it well. Do it to the best of your ability, and try to make some money off it. So that's it for my little rant. To let everybody know, this is broadcasting on T.R.S. YouTube, and I think it's broadcast on Facebook as well. Let me check. I'm just going to double check on my end. Make sure it's broadcasting now. One moment. All right, yeah, I see it now. Perfect. Okay. And let me get the call number. The call number for tonight's show is 712-770-4160. The access code is, actually the participant code is 917324#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The new access code is 917324#. So let me check my email one more time. My guest is here. If not, we will go through with the show. we'll go on. All right, today's stream, or tonight's subject, is titled Chaos Ray Presents Are Foreign Blacks Helping ADOS Americans in America? Now, what a subject. What an interesting topic in itself. An interesting topic I never covered yet, but it's something that has to be examined. So this is one thing I'm probably going to look into read, and I believe this is the article, but it goes into saying, how about this? Well, no, sorry, and really, this is the glimpse of the actual title, but it says here, the problem with black immigrants criticize American blacks when their home nations are failed states. Now, that is another segue to the actual main title of what I gave it, but we always got to understand, and if y'all are accustomed to knowing that America right now, the population of America, from last time I checked, is now for black people in America is roughly now 48 million. So it went from 43 million to roughly an extra 6-7 million added onto the population, or the assumed population of American blacks in America. Now, mind you, out of that percentage, or that number, it's always to be looked at and examined, the breaking downs of who is actually ADOS in America and who's not from America, a.k.a. a foreign black. And as you notice and look, that America imports more immigrants every year for the past 4 years, or every year, or 2, 3, or 5 years. And every party, whether Republican or Democrat, has made a conscious effort to keep adding on to the numbers of the American population here in America. Roughly, we're now, I think, over 330 million strong, maybe 335 or 38 million. And out of that population, there's only roughly 14% that is quote-unquote black, while everybody else from that is non-black, roughly maybe 86 to 87%, if my math is right. But we know by default they don't like to import people that are mostly looking black or African descent in this nation we call America. They more like to pick and import more people that are Eurocentric descents, whether white Hispanics, white Asians, some other Mongoloids that are white passing, even Arabs, which Arabs and Asians not really race per se, but they put into that same pot of pie to add on as whiteness. So, knowing that America has a very much import inflated of people here to keep adding on the death toll of, actually my fault, a replacement toll of people that's the dominant in this country. And what I mean by this, people that are non-black, aka white, etc., are not replacing each other by numbers wise. So they have to go and reach out to other first or third world nations to keep conflicting the numbers to add on to a dying population here in America. Because baby's not rolling like we used to see it. Even now with the black community, it has declined and slowed down in regards population of blacks, rather foreign or actual black Americans, ADOS, in regards how many kids per black family household. I think now is roughly under 2. And it's projected now that by the end of this decade, you're looking at roughly one child per person over the age of 35. Because right now, the average age right now for a woman to give birth first time, and this was like a couple years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, was roughly 26.9, which make it that a woman that gives birth for the first time in America is roughly 27 years old. But they already projected that it's going to probably be more of an increase from late 20s to early 30s. A woman is expecting to have her first child. And we all know once you go past 35, you go to geriatric pregnancy, which is high risk, and after around the 40s, which is very hard to see women giving birth after 40, but it becomes very much more dangerous as you get older. So if we know that the projection of America, especially with black people, is going more of a decline, and women are not having like kids but other black males like that, and I think the reason why that is because a lot of young women are seeing the poverty from their parents, particularly their mothers, just having birth with them, and the father's either around or they just totally break up their household, don't want nothing to do with the man. It's causing a rebound effect to the development of a lot of these children that become adults. And let's be honest, people, children do adapt to the times. What I mean by that, children adapt to the point that now you see a pool of Gen Zs born around 1995 to 2016 or 17 are now not even entertaining dealing with black girls to the way they don't see they want to marry or have anything sexual, from what I'm seeing and hearing. And we all know once children that are adults that's not copulating with the same race, you can kiss this ADOS, black man, black woman, goodbye within the next 30 years, making roughly 2 generations, which actually is started now in the 2000s, roughly 2010, if my math is right. But really true, you're seeing the rise of the mulattoism of America, the browning, the tanning of America, and the only thing that probably will sustain black people if they're descendants of slaves is other blacks in this country, particularly foreign blacks. And I'm just being nice to let y'all know, foreign blacks, read what I'm about to read in a second, if they have any usefulness, or they're really helping black people in America. So, no further ado, let's look into this long piece ahead and read about it. Oh, and make sure, for those that's going to be listening and watching my stream, please like it, share, and leave a comment. Oh, yeah, and one thing, if y'all do have questions or anything, you raise your hand. I think this might be my guess. So let me see if you'll hit me up. Hold on a second. All right. As I'm waiting for him to hit me back up, I'm reading some articles. So let's look into this. The problem with black immigrants criticizing American blacks when their home nations are failed states. As the waves of black immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean have come to the United States to pursue the American dream over the last 40 years, after they are established themselves, some of these transplants feel a need to advise black Americans about our shortcomings. Although these same migrants come from failed states, home nations like Haiti, Jamaica, Liberia, and Nigeria, that they were unable to provide them with any meaningful prospect of a decent life. For those of us that grew up in the Caribbean church, there is a biblical passage that we were taught that is what we call germane to these unrequested advisements.
Call from
Ray Alexander.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right. Ray, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Let me see if they can hear you. I'm hearing from the Google thing, so I'm not sure they can hear you. All right. So
Okay.
let me pause for a second. Let me read the paragraph, and then I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Um. Okay. For those of us that grew up in the church, I read it right. All right. First, take the wooden beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the specks from your brother's eye. Matthew 7:5. All right. So I'm not going with the article because my guest is here. So welcome, Ray Alexanders, for the first time on Talk Real Solutions. Before we go into this subject at hand, can you tell little people about yourself? And before you tell about, I always tell people as a guest for the first time, we like to take a step back in a moment of time before we jump into the present and hopefully onward to the future. So go ahead, Ray Alexander.
Okay, thank you on that, Chaos. Well, I'm just a brother who's concerned about our people. I do try to call in from a few shows from time to time again. I'm from the South, grew up in the South. I try to, because of the doxing that's going on, I don't tell all of my information, but I did attend 2 Big 12 universities for undergraduate and graduate school. I work in healthcare, finance, at a management level, and I pretty much try to mentor. I'm a person of faith. I do mentor. I try to be close in my community. So when I get an opportunity, I do like to call in and discuss topics like this. And I did have some additional information that I sent you that I did want to go over real quick about that you don't have to read that big, long part of it, but there was a paragraph that I sent you. The reason that I was, stating what I did state regarding to immigrants and foreign blacks in the U.S.
Excellent. And for future reference, if this is an article, if you don't mind, I will post this on my channel for people to read it, just in case they want reference. Is that cool?
Which one are the ones called "Are Black Immigrants Help for the Black Americans"?
Yeah,
we had a picture of LeBron James and Joel Embiid.
I mean, it could be anything. Right now, I just give reference like articles if people want to look at the information at their own leisure. I'll do that at the end. So if you have any articles during this broadcast, just email me. But let's go on to the subject at hand. All right, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the question that you asked, are foreign blacks help with the Black Americans? And my answer to that is no, because Black immigrants have not come to the United States to be allies with Black Americans. An ally is a person, a group, or nation that is associated with another or others for some common cause or purpose. Being a good ally means showing up for others through actions, awareness, and empathy. And for the most part, Black immigrants have not shown up to support the human rights, political rights, or economic rights of Black Americans, although we have done that for other foreign blacks. Black immigrants have come to the United States to pursue the American dream of economic opportunity, but they blatantly ignore the historical and systemic racism, as well as the political and economic disenfranchisement that has been a hindrance for most Black Americans to move up the economic ladder. Black immigrants have become a buffer that allows the historical effects of American racism to be swept under the rug because Black immigrants do not have the same historical experiences with systemic racism as foundational Black Americans have had. Black immigrants have been used as a buffer that is a bulwark or defensive wall by mainstream America to infer that the impacts of historical racism no longer impact non-whites. Black immigrants from Africa and the West Indies experience the United States differently than foundational Black Americans. Black immigrants experience America as the land of opportunity because they have typically come from poor and highly dysfunctional nations where upward mobility is severely restricted to those who are part of the small ruling elite. However, Black Americans experience the United States as descendants of those who were once enslaved and as the descendants of those who were blatantly discriminated against and disenfranchised both politically and economically. And the residual effects of that past still has an adverse impact on the life opportunities of Black Americans today. So that's my position statement that I wanted to go over on that.
Now, one question, Ray. what made you came to the idea of, or the conclusion of, not only talking about this subject, but think long term from your perspective, that a person, let's say, that's black, like you and me, that, it's not from here, or probably was raised here, feel that they're not in the best interest to the ADOS, Black American man and woman in America, from a short-term perspective, not long-term, but short-term perspective?
Well, the short term, we're first world citizens, so our lifestyle and our needs are based on our first world status. We have to get control of American politics and businesses to not have this continued demand from people from poor societies that undercut the wages and opportunities of first world citizens. So that's a crisis. So what the United States has been doing is importing people from third world nations that are in somewhat of a desperate situation, even if they come from the elite. And what they're doing, and since we don't have unions for all of our professions, as far as teaching, as far as blue collar, as far as the medical professions, we don't have strong unions to block that politically. They undercut wages and they undercut opportunities. The second part of that, the healing that Black Americans need to have, even with white American, based on the historical enslavement of our ancestors, the disfranchisement of our ancestors during Jim Crow, and just the limited amount of opportunities that we have gotten since the Civil Rights Act have been implemented. We have been overwhelmed with people who have nothing to do with that, but they're benefiting from it. It's like we built the house, we cut the wood, we laid the foundation, we did all of the hard work and heavy lifting. Now new people come to benefit from that and have nothing to do with it. And in addition, they pretty much look down on blacks. And the tragic part of it, these are the same people, and not the people from the Caribbean, but these are the descendants of the same people that actually sold our ancestors into slavery for pittance. So the struggles and the tragedies that we have gone through, the people who are coming now, their actual ancestors are responsible for the tragedy of American slavery that we have experienced. They are responsible for the tragedy of the slavery of blacks in the entire Western Hemisphere. So 15 million blacks were sold away. We have, to the Western Hemisphere, we have a total of 200 million blacks now, currently throughout the Western Hemisphere. 40 million in the United States, more in Brazil and South America, the Caribbean, and Central America. So those are some of the reasons that I thought about this. And I'm pretty much an avid reader. I was understanding a lot about so-called conscious community. But I've come to understand and appreciate the struggles of our ancestors, Booker T. Washington, and the things that he did for the National Business League, people like W.E.B. Du Bois, people like the late editor and founder of Ebony Magazine, the founder of Black Enterprise. A lot of people have really stood up for us, those who founded our black churches, our black, historically black universities, and civil rights institutions like the NAACP, the National Urban League. They made a way, and there was a strong fight on that. So I'm conscious of those things. I don't have any personal indifference or indignation toward the people. What I do want us to do as Black Americans is to assert our political rights, our civil rights, and our economic access to opportunities, and not allow other people that had nothing to do with that. They certainly have a right to come to America and participate in the mainstream America, but they don't have a right to take advantage of things that we fought for as a remedy to historical discrimination.
Okay, excellent. That's a short term. Now, going into the long-term effects, what are the long-term effects, or I like to call the outcomes, of a person that, say, is not a descendant of slaves here in America that's black, or we can go as far as a first-generation person that's not from this country, the effects of them, I guess, assimilate into this American social order around other blacks? What's the outcome you see, the long-term effect of this?
Well, we see a lot of it now. They don't identify. Most of them still keep especially the people from the West African countries, they keep their cultural experiences, which many times have hindered them in West Africa, but they don't identify with us. One of the problems with Barack Obama is that there's a concept called flat blackness, where blacks voted for him because he's black, but he does not have any cultural understanding of our experiences. He did not experience racism. His racism of allegedly going into some store and following him around is totally different from the racism of pushing our ancestors out of the Jim Crow South and stealing 14 million acres of farmland. That's totally different from disenfranchising our ancestors and not allowing them to vote, brutalizing our ancestors who were enslaved. So a lot of the things for the long term, they just do not identify with us. Secondly, maybe more important, as they come, they are experiencing a brain drain of their people to help their people in their home countries. As we talked about Nigeria, I guess last night, Friday evening, Nigeria is a nation of 200 million people. Nigeria is the size of the state of Texas. Nigeria only has about 75,000 physicians to care for a total of 200 million people. And half of those physicians practice outside of Nigeria. Nigeria needs about 300,000 physicians to be in World Health Organization status to care for their people. So when they come to a place to get their education and they don't return to their homeland to help their people, they have misused the resources, because the first generation of Nigerians that came, they were paid by their governments to learn over here, to bring back their engineering degrees, to bring that civil engineering degree, to build cities, to build electric power plants, to build schools, to build hospitals, to build roads. But a large percentage of them stayed. They did not go back. And many who come over today are saying that they're coming to learn to help their countries, but they do not do that. So that brain drain is not only a problem for blacks in Africa, it's a problem for blacks in the West Indies. And also, there's still a large amount of healing that needs to go on for blacks and whites in America, because we were the people who were the labor, the beast of burden that produced the commodities for the South: cotton, sugarcane, tobacco, indigo. These are these crops and commodities that were used and funneled through the New York Stock Exchange to help build the wealth of the United States. So the South was the commodities region, but as we said before, Lehman Brothers was a cotton broker before they became an investment bank. The New York Stock Exchange was advanced with the type of production for blacks descendants of the enslaved. So those are some of the things that were concerning for me to talk about this subject.
Okay. Another thing, I've noticed around certain foreign blacks, there's certain so a few, can't name off a few, I would say mostly some more in Africa, the ones that came to Africa, there is a sense of entitlement to a few of them. There's a certain mindset, a lot of them that's either raised in America or they just came at a certain age, that some of them do look down on black people that's here and have been on this country for centuries. And there was some that was leaked, and there was a documentary on this. I forgot which one it was. I don't know if it was 10 Colors. There was one documentary I can recall, and there were certain protocols when they start screening certain blacks, like us, dark hue, whatever, blacks that come here, that they be put in a special room, and they sit there and gave them specific instructions who they should not interact or deal with in this country, especially if they're like almost like adults, if they're moving here or they're going to school here. And when I found about that, I always think about that, the people that come here, maybe they had some intentions to work with other blacks in this country, and they've been fooled by the European, aka white man, to not even associate with people that's here in America for a while. That's been here for centuries. That's what I was thinking when watching that. But I feel that, well, not feel, I will say either I know or don't know that most of them that go through that process and go by what the Europeans told them instruction-wise, some majority will play the rules and abide by the rules of that. But I feel the ones that have intentions and have a goal, that they're looking for something more and they're looking to unify with a few black ADOS people to accomplish certain things, to get things done, I know that they're out here. But the ones that come here and they're just here just to go to school, get the degrees through government aid, from the what do they call it? Especially when they get foreign aid that they get from their country in the billions, that someone will take the money and come here and learn and don't have nothing to do with people that's actually black, that's not from their tribe, i.e. from their country, on the average. So there is a divide by design by other groups of people, specifically people that they're Americans, like, the Europeans, that they play these games with the mindset of people that are, blacks, to keep the divide going so there's no network. They even go as far as, Ray, if you did not recall, back in legislation and politics, back in the 70s when Carter was in office, they made a mission to make sure that, black people in America and outside America don't do business or unify to do something that's going to be more greater down the line. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, that there is many games being played why certain foreign blacks think the way they do or they operate the way they do to us, per se. But I just don't know nowadays, because now it could go any way now. You get me? Because let's be honest.
I hear you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and comment a little bit on that. Do you know the name of that documentary that you saw? Do you recall it?
It might be either from, I think it might have been Hidden Colors, the first one back in 2011.
Okay, Hidden Colors.
I could be wrong, because it's been now 10 years when I remember watching it. I'm
familiar with Tariq Aziz, but I haven't seen Hidden Colors. Yeah. But I will say this. I do believe that is basically a myth that a lot of those individuals use because they have disdain and contempt. They feel they are superior to black Americans, although they come from dysfunctional nations that cannot do the basics. And that's why they're over here trying to make a better life for themselves. There's an article written by Foreign Policy that you can go ahead and Google. It's called "There Are No Successful Black Nations." It's written by our top policy analyst in the Council for Foreign Relations. And in that, it shows that there is not one black nation in Africa, the Caribbean, or in Central America, or South America that has a viable military that can protect it from anyone. They are not sufficient in food production, energy production, and they're dependent on the West for all of their needs. Right now, African governments are asking the West to give them $100 billion for COVID vaccines. Now, India they're going through a big crisis. They've developed their vaccines to help their people. However, Nigeria has not developed its own vaccine. Ghana, South Africa, none of these countries have done this. But they are still saying that they, for some reason, feel superior. But I'd like for you and our guests to look up that. It's called "There Are No Successful Black Nations." Google that. It's written by the Council on Foreign Relations, which advises our military, which advises our president. These are the types of things. I think a lot of people conveniently want to just leave out. They are coming from a situation where they don't have a good future in their home nation. But instead of doing the work, they've been independent 60 years now, more than that. South Korea has been independent 60 years, and they are a first world country, and they were colonized. Singapore was colonized. They've been independent 60 years, and they're fully a first world country. But Nigeria is going through crisis after crisis after crisis. They're overpopulated. They have not built their infrastructure, and they, from their own thing, seeing from their own Minister of Natural Resources, They will be out of natural gas and petroleum, oil and petroleum, within 40 years. And they have not, and they will have double the population in 40 years. They have not built an infrastructure. And they have actually, they used to, I mean, it's a tragedy because there's been a lot of theft and corruption, billions of dollars. They don't even know where the revenue goes. A lot of the elites take the revenue from oil, they steal it and put it in European bank accounts, and even the low-level people steal a lot of the oil and natural, and they burn their natural gas away. Qatar, which is in the United Arab Emirates, it would be, you spell it Qatar. They take their natural gas and they store it. So they've overtaken Nigeria in natural gas production and sales. And they monitor, they're fully computerized, they monitor everything, but Nigeria has just lost its way. But a lot of and it will not get better until Nigerians who are all over the world will go back and make their nation what it needs to be. And the president of Nigeria, Buhari, is asking them to do that. So you read up that. I don't believe that they were informed in any small room to quote, "Hey, blacks." They feel superior. For some reason, they feel being colonized in their homeland and completely conquered by Britain, completely conquered by France, completely conquered by the Portuguese. And also there's a Spanish colony that was conquered as well. And I'm trying to see, and also by the British. So all of these nations where they were completely conquered and ruled over in their homeland, for some reason they feel superior to the blacks who fought and overcame slavery, and within 30 years after slavery were completely literate, that could read, write, spell, had bought more farmland, were 14% of all farmers, that's like 14 million acres, built Tuskegee and black institutions, churches, businesses, the Negro Business League. That was unheard of. Marcus Garvey came here to meet with Booker T. Washington. He took his cues from Booker T. Washington and what Booker T. Washington built in Tuskegee and the Negro Business League, which became the National Business League. So, we just have to be careful of that. And part of the reason why there's a lot of that going on, and I know this term sounds bad, is because the Hotep community has sensitized black Americans to Africa and Pan-Africanism. But if black Americans really did their history and understood that it was not whites that captured us, it was other black people that captured our ancestors and sold them for a pittance, sold a 13-year-old girl for a mirror, sold people for patio umbrellas, for just basic junk and cloth. Now, they did get some firearms which were dysfunctional, but the people that sold them that, and they leased their land so that so the Europeans could build slave castles. And these people are knowledgeable of that because I've talked to priests who teach in Africa. I've talked to people that have taught in African universities. They teach that, especially the academic elite that come here. So the lie that they don't know anything about slavery, they have many of their current ports are near slave castles. So they knew that they had a major role to play in selling human beings, some with their own tribes and some with other tribes, for over 2 centuries that populated South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and the United States with black people who were beasts of burden, who were brutalized throughout that whole hemisphere to make other people wealthy. And they were sold away by their own brothers in Africa.
Before I give the call number, I'm Googling it now. Can you give it to me again? This said about the foreign aid. Not foreign. You said earlier about to give me that. I'm looking at it right now. I'm Googling it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I don't know why it disappeared. Something about nation. I'm trying to remember what it was. You said.
But you're Googling what on that chaos? And I'll tell you what to Google or what I was mentioning.
You were mentioning something about. know it was Nigeria, Ghana, about what they have. Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember now. I typed up, but I didn't finish it. So when I clicked off it, it didn't.
There was one thing that we were saying that is called "There Are No Successful Nations." I was asking you to Google that.
Yeah,
if you put that in Google and push "There Are No Successful Black Nations," and it will bring up an article by the Council on Foreign Relations that discusses specifically the tragedy of the failure of each Caribbean and Black nation to let me just get back to this.
Why are there any successful Black nations in the world? Let me see that.
Do you see it?
Why are there? Oh, that's wrong. Let me go back. That's not the one. It said why Black people must help. No, okay. I found one called by Quora.com. Why aren't there any successful Black nations in the world?
Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, look for "There Are No Successful Black Nations."
Oh, that's a real clear word.
Foreign policy, by foreignpolicy.com. It's by the Council on Foreign Relations. It says there are no successful Black nations in Africa or the Caribbean.
I found here it said.
And by success, yeah.
It said there are no successful Black nations. This is by Real Clear World. Hear me?
Mm-hmm. Is it by foreignpolicy.com, the Council on Foreign Relations?
Let's see. Foreign Policy, August 11, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one?
It should be August 9th. Okay, that should be it, where it talks about, that should be it. There are no why are there no successful Black nations? And it's a good article that goes over the reason why they are basically fleeing their home countries, going to Europe, being disrespected, going to the United States. The reason why they come to the United States because Europe, they don't have any, if you talk to brothers who have been in the U.S. military, when brothers go to Europe in the U.S. military, they go to Italy, they go to Germany, they go to France. They're well respected. But brothers from Africa, Europeans, there's a lot of anti-African hatred and bigotry. A lot of brutality. Tragically, a lot of African women are prostituted throughout Europe. But America, because of what Black Americans have done to make America sensitized to non-white people, they come over here with freedoms and opportunities that they don't experience even in Britain. There's a lot of competition in Britain as far as right now, I think over the weekend, the Pakistani mayor of London was reelected. Half of London is South Asian, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And so Africans don't have those opportunities. So they're running away, fleeing wherever they can go, but they don't want to build up their homelands, which have great natural resources. It's a great tragedy that the whole continent of Africa is only 3% of the global domestic product in trade, whereas the United States is 24%. So those are some of the things. But were you able to bring that article up to review that?
Yeah, this article. I'll probably save this and put it in the description.
Okay.
What
he says. Go ahead.
Let me give the call number for those who want questions on the subject.
Okay.
The call number is 712-770-4160. The participation access code is 917-324#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 917324. Tonight's subject, Chaos Reign presents. Are foreign Black helping ADOS Americans in Africa? ADOS Americans in America. You about to say some, Ray? Because we have one person that raised their hand.
Okay, yeah. If they have a question, go ahead. I'd be glad to answer. You can answer however you'd like to do it on that, Chaos.
All right. For the first caller, I'll open your line. Hello, caller. Hear me?
Hi, Gary, hi. Could you increase the volume a little bit?
Well, I'm not sure if I could because we're calling from different lines. So this is the best the lines the volume's going to get. And I'm talking to the mic. And
Let
Ray,
me see if I can increase my volume. Is that better?
I can hear you, Dr. Short. It's Gary. It's really hard to hear him sometimes. He goes in and out. But anyway, I've been listening to you for about a good 35 minutes, and it's quite interesting. And a lot of different thoughts are kind of running through my mind, but I'll keep it brief. When you talk about, the colonization, I did see the Crown series, which was kind of interesting. And how the British colonized Africa, and I haven't really looked into that historically, or other than Belgium going over there in the Congo and having a lot of Africans murdered over there and taking out their resources. But as of today, what does colonization mean? Do these colonized countries are they have any obligations toward Britain or England at this point? And secondly, I was listening to a podcast with some Britishers, Black African Britishers, and they were saying that it's a different type of racism over there. And these are professional people, journalists, went to school for journalism, an attorney. And it's different than it is here in the United States, the way it's done, but that only until 2020, allegedly, they looked up and saw a black family on a Christmas ad. It hadn't been done allegedly before. So the black actors, and they were saying the actors and actresses can't get jobs. It's very hard to get work. And that's why they're coming here to this country. And, of course, that's an issue because ADOS, African Americans, need jobs as well. It's hard for them to get work. And then there was one third thing, and I just can't think of what it is right now. But I'll just keep it at that. If you can talk about that, those two things.
I think that was really a very good question. I really appreciate you for asking that. So what is colonization in Africa today? Colonization in Africa is neocolonialism. The same powers that ruled the economies of Africa in the past will rule those economies today. Britain, the United Kingdom, controls $1 trillion worth of trade in natural resources in British Africa. They control that through 100 companies on the London Stock Exchange. Right before COVID, in January 2020, you'll see, what is his name, what is the name of the British Prime Minister? A picture of him, not Tony Blair, I'll look him up right now, signing a series of trade agreements with Buhari.
Is this the BRICS nation?
Showing that there's, say that once again.
Is this dealing with the BRICS nation?
Boris Johnson.
Is this like the
now with right after the Brexit, Boris Johnson and the Prime Minister of Great Britain and the President of Nigeria, Buhari, signed another trade agreement. So Britain still controls the natural resources of Africa to the tune of $1 trillion through those 100 companies. France still maintains its military in Africa. They have a military of 4,000 that not one West African country can defeat. Anytime there's some type of election thing, they control it. They control the resources of, even though China is coming in, the French West Africans prefer the French. You still have the Portuguese, who pretty much still control the economy of Angola, Mozambique, and also the white British and the Afrikaners, the 5 million whites that live in South Africa, control that economy. And they own most of the farmland, they own most of the businesses. There are 58 million people in South Africa. And so once South Africa changed politically, that did not change the financial resources of it. So all of these people who are trying to say that they are doing better than Black Americans or they have something to teach us, they have not done their homework in their home nations. And as you said, a lot of even in Britain, a lot of these, you have the there's a little bit of talk. Let me try to backplace on this. You have Tyler Perry, who just built a $300 million studio in Atlanta, in East Point, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And it's a beautiful, state-of-the-art. You have Nollywood that's in Nigeria, which does not have one studio. These
really? I didn't know that.
Budget. They do not have one studio. They are low budget, basically street, people who would do on a videotape of that. And these were low-level budget making. There was a commission that was going to build a $10 million television studio movie city for that, but the Muslim North, the parliamentarians, they canned it. So when you see the type of production, Black Entertainment Television, Tyler Perry, even though if you don't like his movies, he built a $300 million studio. The Oprah Winfrey Network. Oprah built a $54 million school for girls in South Africa. I wish she would have built it for girls here, but she did it there. Yeah. I don't see the reciprocity yet. I'm still waiting. I saw the Black Panther, and they said that the Wakanda was going to build a technology center in Oakland. We're still waiting for Wakanda to build that for our brothers and sisters in Oakland. So the part of it is that I'm not indignant toward these people. I want Black Americans to understand the great job that our ancestors did in overcoming these obstacles and make full and complete use of the opportunities that we have here. So I think she did ask about neocolonialism, the British actors that are coming here, and also there's some Black Spanish actors and news reporters, because in South America, that would be a different subject. There's a great deal of anti-Black, anti-brown skin colorism in the media, and a lot of those actors come here. Like, what's the brother that's named is Alfonso, something that played in some of Tyler Perry's movies he played in. Then you had the sister that played Chris White's Rock, and I think I love Chris Rock's wife, and I Think I Love My Wife movie. She's Spanish, Hispanic, Black Hispanic. You had Alfonso, not Alfonso Ribeiro, but he played in a couple of the movies. Everybody's come, instead of building what they need for themselves, they're coming imposing on Black Americans. Now, certainly come to be friends and allies, but you're not building anything for your homeland, and you have all these natural resources, and Nigeria should be splendid. They have had more. If you look at places like Qatar, the United Arab Immigrants, right now the reason that you don't see a whole lot of immigrants from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia like you used to, they've built everything they need in their homeland. If you're in Saudi Arabia and you want to become a doctor, you want to become an engineer, you don't have to leave Saudi Arabia now. 50 years ago they did. They have beautiful, magnificent new cities that they have built. They have sovereign wealth funds. If you want to be a doctor in Saudi Arabia, you don't have to leave. You have professors from all over the world that come teach there. There are schools. There's a division of Carnegie Mellon in the United Arab Immigrants, where professors from all over the world come to teach. But that's not the case with the oil wealth that Nigeria has had. And there has been a lot of backlash in Europe. And what's happening is that Black Americans are now understanding, hey, a lot of this funding that is going to for foreign aid really needs to be invested in cities in America, needs to be invested in Black colleges, because you take care of your home first. And so we shouldn't have homelessness in America. We should not have underfunded Black colleges. We should not have programs where people who were not the victims of discrimination, racism, and blatant discrimination benefiting from programs like affirmative action. And so those are some of the things. Did I kind of go over those areas for you, ma'am, or were there some other areas?
Yes, you did. And, I take this too with, historical figures like Martin Luther King and the Fred Hampton and Aretha Franklin being played by non-ADOS people. I understand everybody needs to work, but there are just some roles I think that really should be reserved for people that are descended from slaves.
The lady that played Harriet Tubman is not from America. I think she's from Europe, I believe. But she's from Africa.
Yeah, she's British. She's British Nigerian.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't have. Nobody's ever had anything that negative to say about Idris Elba, because Idris Elba came over as an ally. You have not heard Idris Elba calling brothers a kata, looking down on brothers. He embraced us. And that's why you don't have any negative. He's played in Tyler Perry movies. He played in The Wire. He's done a whole lot of work with a lot, but he has never called us out of our name. He became an ally. But a lot of these people, Cynthia Erivo, who played Aretha Franklin, trashed out Black Americans. Lovey Ajayi, she trashed out Black Americans and said that we're, in quote, don't have a culture. And we definitely have a culture. So, but she doesn't want to go back to Nigeria because she won't have any human rights. As a woman, she won't be able to realize her best self. But they come over here and benefit. And listen, they were not coming here 100 years ago. They were not coming here 70 years ago when there were sundown towns. They were not trying to go to College Station, Texas A&M. They were not trying to, and when these were sundown towns in the South, you were not going to Auburn University 50 years ago talking about you want to learn engineering. You would get brutalized. These were sundown towns. But now, since Black Americans were brutalized through the civil rights movement to give everybody opportunities, I think that we need to make the effort to make sure that the descendants of those people get those opportunities. So it's not that we're indignant with them. People need to come as allies, like this elder has come. Elders has come. He's come and he's been a friend of Black people. He stood up for Black causes. He talked about the importance of COVID, vaccinations. He has not been calling us, saying that we're inferior. And that's why Idris Elba has a very positive reputation in the Black American community. But a lot of these Nigerians who are calling Black Americans a kata, which means wild beast, scavenger, and things of that nature. And these are things that are tragic, because you really need to, as we said, you need to look at what's happening in your home country and rectify that. And that would go for our brothers in Ghana, too. So I do appreciate you. That was a very good question. I appreciate you answering that, because it's not that we're indignant. We are standing up for ourselves. And there are a lot of Hoteps who have sensitized us. The Hoteps, if they want to go to Africa and lose all the opportunities and the citizenship that our people fought for, they're welcome to do that. But we see more people coming from Africa. We see hundreds of thousands coming from Africa. But you should see there may be 3,000 Black Americans in Ghana total right now. And there are probably not 50,000 Black Americans throughout the sub-Saharan Africa. So we really have to think about why that's the case. Even when we were to settle Liberia, when people were actually enslaved, only 13,000 Black Americans went to settle Liberia.
Do you know it was bourgeoisie ones that helped colonize Liberia, the same ones that were, what's the word? Were used as the foot soldiers to go into that part of Africa to make a colony to so-called send back the unwanted slaves that they breeded and made for the last 100 or something years. That was the plan when Lincoln was around. But obviously, no, that didn't really go well. I think the reason why they didn't go through with it, if they could have, and I would no doubt they would have, is, let's be honest, if they decided to send this Black man and woman that they helped create since the 1600s up to the end of enslavement, America would actually collapse back then, and probably as we're going through one right now, that this nation cannot withstand and keep operating without the assistance of Black men and women. This is the honest truth. That's why when people talk about, say, oh, they're going to get rid of us, no, they're going to try to limit your numbers here. But really say to get rid of you, no, that's suicide. Because they already know everything they got, their comfort, their leisure, they get off of the backs especially off the black man, which people don't really look into history and really fall and really study and say, what do these other groups of people have that they contribute to civilization, much less society, without the assistance of black people? Most of all the inventions that were made by black men and women in America for the past 50 years, and maybe some now, but it's slowed down for the last 50 years, all the 80% of inventions were made here in America by black people that the world still uses today, Ray.
Right.
So that's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing about it, and a lot of people study it, that why didn't we try to go to Canada? There were certain people that did go up to Canada that fought for the British and moved to Canada. A small group of people escaped slavery, but amazingly, our ancestors stayed here under the Southern laws. We had 10 years of Reconstruction, and then that was taken away, and there were Jim Crow laws that were instituted for about a century. When the civil rights legislation came out in the 60s, there was just enough. They didn't even allow enough breathing room for black Americans and white Americans to just heal. They allowed all the, it was called the Nationalization Act of 1965, where they just let a lot of people start flooding. We needed some time to heal. There's a brother named Roy, he's not black, but there's a gentleman named Roy Beck who talks about how mass immigration limited, and he's white, limited the economic opportunities of black Americans by having other groups come in and do work that we traditionally did. And now in the 80s, when you have blacks who are coming, and the tragedy, they haven't improved their countries. It's one thing if you came over and you learned engineering and you're building roads, water systems, hospitals, schools, and transportation systems and food systems that are feeding your people. But actually, Nigeria has gotten worse, progressively worse after independence. When Nigeria was ruled by the British, when West African Britain was ruled by the British, they had surpluses of food. It was relatively safe. They were emerging educationally and all of that. When they went, it's gone backwards since independence. There are a lot of reasons for that, but the leadership has been a failure. And we cannot be absorbing everybody else's problems. As black Americans, we've got to stand up for ourselves first, and we can help those that we can. But America does have a responsibility to make black Americans whole, the descendants of those who were enslaved, as well as the descendants of those who were disenfranchised politically and economically under Jim Crow. And that would be a more recent history that we could also stake claims for reparations.
Yeah, and that's the next and final move that for black men and women in America to really, I will not say sustain themselves, but to really survive the coming years ahead is the push to get some form of repair.
Right.
I know a lot of blacks, and I'm going to tell you a secret, Ray. You've been around YouTube, listened to a lot of men in this space, right? And women, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed with the conversation when it comes to reparations, you see a lot of Negroes push back on it? You ever notice that?
Yeah, I think that.
And
I hear that.
I'm going to give you an idea why before you respond. When you look at the background, a lot of these dudes, when they go and you ask certain questions, most of them are first-generation American. Some of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I say some of them because some of them will tell you that they have a parent that's not from here, and one parent is an ADOS. And the other story, some of them either were not born here, but they were born in another country, came in when they were like a teenager or as a child, and was groomed and raised here in America for a good portion of their adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you how bad it got. I remember one time in I'm trying to remember the place that they have in New York when they have a convention. Foreign Affairs? I don't know if that's what it's called. It's a
it's a convention center in New York?
Yeah, it's dealing with foreign nations. I'm trying to remember.
The United Nations.
There you go. Nations. They had one particular brother that's under the age of 25 talking that that reparations is something stupid that is not needed, etc. This dude is a Hispanic black person that's not from here.
Yeah.
So the games that's being played here now for the ADOS man and woman, they gotta be careful that there are many people that's very much opposition that to get what's rightfully yours, because other nations from the Japanese got the reparations. The Native Americans still get reparations. We know that the Jews got reparations a long time. Who else? Yeah. It was slipped my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of nations, even the Asians now, got bills signed for even greater protection before black people in this country. You notice that from this administration?
Right.
So that's
the brother that you're.
Go ahead.
The brother that you're talking about is Coleman Hughes, who's a student. He just graduated from Columbia University. He's black Puerto Rican. I think he has some ADOS in him. And then you're also talking about Candace Owens, who is from the Virgin Islands. I don't know if she's from the British Virgin Islands or the U.S. Virgin Islands, but she does have some connection. And what they're doing is disregarding what has occurred on that. And also you have a lot of this, for some reason there's some anti-black Americanism, because I think that they feel that these people, I think they're misinterpreting things. When they were colonized and their resources are utilized by other people, I just don't understand how, as we talked about it, I don't understand how, with all of the problems that are in Haiti, that Haitian Americans talk down and look down on black Americans. I don't understand how, with all of the problems in Nigeria, that Nigerian Americans, instead of improving their homeland, look down on black Americans. I mean, you can just go through, and same thing in Jamaica. Jamaica is going through all types of crises. Liberia is going through all types of crises. If you really loved your people, you would be concentrating your energy on trying to get policies to help them, because the fact of the matter is black Americans, foundational black Americans, you identify also as ADOS black Americans, are the most well-off, well-established, economically and politically powerful group of blacks in the world. There is no group of first world blacks that compete with us. We're about the size of the population of Spain. Our gross buying power is about the same as the gross domestic product of Spain. Our high school graduation rates as ADOS are about the same as the high school graduation of the nation of Spain. And our median income is about the same as the median income of Spain. So there is no African nation that has a similar socioeconomic status per capita of black Americans, and they're falling backwards. This is what their leaders are showing. They're being left out of the world economy. A lot of their commodities can be replaced everywhere. They don't have a lock on what do we call the rare earth metals. We have rare earth metals in Wyoming. There are rare earth metals in Greenland. There are a lot of places throughout the world where you can get rare earth metals, and Africa, sub-Saharan Africa in particular, is squandering its natural resources, and China is trying to get a lot of resources out of them without paying real fair amounts for it, and they're doing a lot of damage. They're doing a lot of natural, environmental damage to those people's lands. So it's just, my thing is that as black Americans, we need to concentrate on focusing on building up black Americans, and these people that come here come as allies, because they think that because we are a buffer for them in many ways. Like California is now 40% Hispanic, primarily Mexican American. And there's a small percentage of Nigerian, Eritrean, and Ethiopians that are there that are doing pretty well. However, as the boomers and black boomers in California pass on, and many more black Californians move to the south and move east and away from California, that protective buffer that the Hispanics would not allow When they take power, when they become 51% of the state of California, they're going to change those laws. They're not going to have 51% of Hispanics in California as the population and 2% of the doctors in California as Mexican American. They're going to change those laws to have discretionary rights, and a lot of these people who are thinking that they're riding high on the hog will be surprised when they won't have the buffer of Black Americans that are say, hey man, we're now in the South, we're now standing here if you want to be our allies here, but those Hispanics are going to stand up for their own interests. So it's just kind of interesting what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting you laid that out that California itself, regardless of the blacks that moved there back in during Jim Crow days and etc., that now there is an exodus. I can't explain it because I never lived in California. I'm not sure if you live in, or once lived in California. But when I look at the population, if I look at black demographics, I think it's like under 5% now of blacks that live in California. So right now, they're not even a large population like they used to for the last couple of decades. I think every decade it starts to decrease. And I think one of that is usually environmental because the cost of living and the U.S. dollar has really shown is, foothold in a lot of Americans. So, depending on what black people were doing in California, they can't sustain proper living. I mean, think about it. There's a lot of black male homelessness in the West, especially in California. They're sleeping on floors.
Because of the climate. They're not going to go to where it snows. People come from all over because they have resources for them. There's a moderate climate. You could sleep outdoors. You're not in the desert. You're not in snow. You don't have hurricanes. So people come from all over. And you're right, the cost of housing is astronomical. I don't know when the next real estate crash is going to happen. Does anybody know? Because
it's coming. It's coming. Listen, it's coming. I was watching a sister, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Erica Williams. She talked about it. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's eventually coming. I mean, if you look at it now, a lot of people are evicted right now, from what I'm hearing right now. Because that little thing, you get that stimulus check that really can't hold, especially depending on the state you live, and the rent. That's only going to be.
But this is the thing. It's a financial reset because corporations, foreign and domestic, are buying up properties, paying cash. I was on a YouTube channel, and a real estate man was saying how in Texas, there's a place in Texas they're putting up all these brand new homes, like starter homes for families, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, maybe $200,000. Well, the developer and the lender have already agreed they're not going to sell like 40% of them. They're going to keep them as rental properties. They're going to make more money renting them. And this is what's happening. They're buying whole swaths of properties, big developments, and now they're buying like duplexes, fourplexes, and they're paying cash. So it's like if you think you're going to get your family legacy by putting your 20-30% down, buying a rental property, well, they come in with cash.
Well, like I said,
so I don't know if they're going to be a big. They're going to buy them out.
Listen. If they're not smart, they have to get wherever's possible, wherever money or wherever credit they can buy it now. Because if corporations are moving in that direction, you're in trouble. Because we all know if you become a renter, that means they could fluctuate what the rent is, and we all know the way how people live and how much money they make a week or month. That you don't want to be sitting there giving nobody, let's say, $12,000 a month just to keep roof over your head for years and years and years, because now you're not building nothing. You're filling up their pockets even more. And eventually, once you are, like, say, have a family and something, you go and being a renter, you're not passing down nothing. And they already know this. That's why when the first housing crisis happened back in 2008, it was just the preparation of what is to come. You get me? They know a lot of people not going to be able to afford housing because cost of living keep going up. So what best they know is that people are they can make more money as making people be renters. And imagine it's worse now if you're a person that you're single and you're renting. That's the worst thing. And now now you in it by yourself, paying just to keep a little roof over your head, and anytime you mess up, you slip, you could eventually be evicted and you could be homeless. So I tell most Americans, you better be careful, you better wisen up, be prepared for it now. It's coming. But go ahead.
Well, that's why we're saying that the next step is for us to do like our great-grandparents did, learn as other people are doing multi-generational living, where you have the main parents, then you would take care of the grandparents, and the grandparents would take care of the kids while you're at work. Move to the South where it's more affordable, where you can build affordable homes. Don't necessarily go to the biggest cities if you have the skills where you can work remote, or if you're in healthcare, because those major cities will be really expensive areas to stay. That's why people get out of New York. A lot of people are going to more affordable places. People
like
are moving
Georgia,
out of California. Some are going to,
Atlanta,
Colorado, Nevada,
Georgia.
Some of them, yeah.
Even some going into the tax-free states like Florida.
And so, we have to do that proactively because things are changing pretty rapidly. But getting back to what we were talking about, are immigrants helpful to Black Americans? And I say basically no, because they're not reaching out, coming as allies. They're making it look like we're not trying, and we know what the political is. But the point is that they are brain trained. When they come, they're not reaching out and say, "Hey, man, I'm your brother from Africa. This is what we do here. This is what's happened." And nobody's and I know that Black Americans have done this because we've even had people build churches that have a Pan-African theme. There's a church that started out of Detroit called the African Orthodox Christian Church, where they have a Pan-African theme. There's another one in Atlanta. Our first church that we built in the United States, the AME Church, stands for the African Methodist Episcopal Church. It was for blacks, started out of Philadelphia by Bishop Allen, and my grandmother, my late grandmother, late great-grandmother was AME. And so I got to go to the AME Church some Sundays. I got to go to the Baptist Church because my grandfather was Baptist, my great-grandfather as well. But the point of the matter is that we have looked positively Black to Africa. We have reached out for African cultural things. You have these brothers who, when they, I guess, get woke, they're wearing their African dashikis and then getting condemned for it because we don't know all of the details of it. So these people really need to be considered because they're coming into a society and they're thinking that they're winning, but we know the history of this society. And you're thinking that you are, and this society is what they're calling balkanizing. What that means, people are separating by region. You got the Western region, you got a lot of predominantly white states that are going to stay white. You're having states that are going to be predominantly Hispanic, California, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and Florida, and Texas. Then you have the states like Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State. They're going to be predominantly white. A lot of Michigan will still be white predominantly. So a lot of these places, people were balkanizing, but a lot of these people are not understanding that people do not, although we're diverse, they're not understanding the history, and they're actually putting themselves in a dangerous situation if they don't understand that they need to be politically aware. They need to be allied with people who can help them. But just by abandoning Africa, just by abandoning the Caribbean, and what's happening, even places like Jamaica, the Chinese are building these shoddy roads and infrastructure in Jamaica, charging them exorbitant rates. They're doing it in Africa. Once you have to start paying the Chinese back, they take land. They've taken ports. I heard that they took an airport somewhere in Africa, maybe in Zambia, because they couldn't pay the loan back. They built the airport. They said they're going to manage the airport for 99 years. So they're going to rake all that money out of that and then do their thing. So that's kind of where we were kind of coming from. Were there some other Also on that, Chaos, were there some other things that you wanted to discuss about that as well?
One thing before I continue, I'm just going to call in for people that have any questions, any further questions. The call number again is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324#. Tonight's subject, Chaos Rain presents, are foreign blacks helping ADOS Americans in America? One thing I do want to say, we look on the board for if anybody has any further questions, is the deals that the Asians has made with Africa. And mind you, if people don't know, if you buy certain land from Africa, you can't really own it depending on the country you're in, because there's certain laws that they put on the books in regards to ownership and renting, that there are certain lands you could buy Africa. Now, the stipulation is either you have to be possibly be some type of citizen, or you have somebody that help you buy the land. That's some of the rules in certain countries of Africa. But most of the time, you go to certain parts of Africa, you normally going to be renting, and the rent will last, or actually, my fault, leasing. My fault, correction. Leasing will last around either 50 or close to 100 years. And mind you, the Asians are aware of this. That's why, if you look at most of them that are building infrastructure, they have made deals with certain African nations to go the leasing route. Because think about it, if I could lease a land for more than close to a century, I could do a lot. I could do a lot of damage within the first 50 years. And imagine now with the technology they have now, because we have a lot of automated technology, things that could drill much faster, excavate resource, it's going to do damage on soils in Africa, which a lot of African nations a lot of people are not aware of. These are deals that were made by your government. And the reason why they make these deals is because, let's be honest, Africa is one of the few nations that's going to be a thriving nation in regards to infrastructure in the coming decades. But the consequence of this, because they're not doing it for themselves or having other blacks from either from the Caribbean or Europe or even America that they should have networked, could have done that for an affordable price. They decided to go reach out to who? The Asians. And we all know the Asians are just as wicked as the European man. But here's the funny thing. They're not going to deal with you and deal with like how the Europeans brought history, throughout the centuries, with force. They're going to do it in a nice way where they say, oh, well, you have to give this because we made a deal. And by your deal and this contract is blood bound. See, the Europeans, how they operate, they will steal from you and won't give you nothing in return. The only thing the Asians will give you in return is the infrastructure. But if you can maintain it. Now, if you can't maintain it, that's when they could go to the full extent of the negotiation of the arrangement of the contract. They could take your land. So it's the same parasitical game they're playing to a lot of black people outside of America.
So, well, I agree with you on that. And I did want to also note, as you were saying, the continent of Africa, which is 54 nations, what happens, as you said, we don't know if the Chinese, because the Chinese does have one military base in the Horn of Africa. They are also considering they're trying to find other places that would allow them to put a military base. They have police forces that protect Chinese people working in South Africa. So, and then you have 1 million Chinese that are in Africa, throughout Africa, that run businesses. So even if they don't control it militarily, if they are the manufacturing class for Africa, they will be the elite that will control the politicians. And they will also enter. You will see, you got one Chinese guy who is now an African priest, but you will see, if they continue what they're doing, you will see a biracial Chinese Asian man become a president of one of those countries. If you think about Peru, there was a Japanese gentleman whose parents were farmers who moved from Japan like 100 years ago, and the son became president. His name is Fujimori, and his daughter is a senator in Peru who's running for president Now she just ran for it, or she'll be running for it again. So their long-term goal will be to control those economies, and according to how powerful the Chinese military is, you don't have that buffer. They're talking about, and that's why they're trying to reconnect with their previous colonial governments like France, because they feel it's more fair, because in France now it's going to be putting a lot of teachers in French West Africa. I'm talking about French citizens. It's going to call the French Teaching Corps, where they're going to put 120,000 teachers over the next 20 years to teach throughout French West Africa. And that's also to keep them, pretty much in line and allied with France. So it's unfortunate, but getting back to that point is that they need to take care of home and get that together, because they will be in a bad situation having other people control their home countries in the United States, where other people who are hostile to them will not them. And this is what they're not recognizing. Just like in California, they think that as the Hispanic population increases in California, when they control that state, they're going to do what's in their best interest. A lot of these programs that people are a part of right now, and they're bragging about becoming engineers, they're going to open those doors like everybody does for their own people. They're going to say, look, we're not going to be 51% of California and have 2% of the doctors. We're going to have programs. We're not going to be 2% of the engineers. We're not going to be 2% of the teachers. We're going to open doors to train our people to be culturally competent to help us. So that will be coming. And that's what people in power do. So those are some of the things on that as well. And I did want to ask you, Chaos, what have your experiences been in interacting with African as well as Caribbean Black immigrants?
The only answer I can give for the African side, some have been friendly. I go out on about sometimes. I probably need to do more anyway. But I have no problem right now for a very few Africans that if they be honest with me, and if I ask if they're from Africa, they'll have a friendly demeanor towards me. Same thing with people from the islands. No different.
Okay.
I don't know any particular island. I'm sure either from Trinidad, Barbados, or even Jamaica. But one thing I do want to add, if you notice, Ray, there's also the rise of what I like to call the bastardization of certain parts of Africa when it comes to the Asian man impregnating the African women in certain parts of the countries and leaving bastard children, or like it's called anchor babies. So that also facilitates the blending and the confusion as well, which a lot of black people still have not learned, brother, that one of the few arts of war is to sit there and to dilute your population. And I just add that. That's not really in the book, but I add that, so if anybody steals that, they get it from me. That they dilute your population. They dilute your genetics by using your women as the anchor piece to create the mulatto or the mixed child, so that way this child has a certain allegiance, because he's not going to have that certain connection per se towards the mother's people. And I find this very common. You know what I'm saying? Because I always hear that it said when the black man goes around spreading seed, that it caused an effect, which is true. But how these people think, they already study and analyze us and know that it doesn't matter if the black man impregnates one of their women and creates a mulatto, or they impregnate one of our women. The mindset is the same. If you're black, you're evil, down, all the above. And you are separate because you're not one of them per se, but you are part of them still, because you are what we like to call in the realms of the one-drop rule. And a lot of black men and women still have not learned that a one-drop rule for the last couple of decades is irrelevant. It does not really hold no weight at all. And why I say is because they know now that the time was come that for them to remain not only in power but to remain on this earth, they're going to have to mix in the blood with us. Because they already control the infrastructure and they control the education of how we think and feel about other groups of people. So no matter if this kid comes from two different racial parents, I've created the infrastructure and the education to reinforce the so-called supremacy over my domination towards you. So by default, your child is going to always try to gear and live and want to be like me and will look down on you. That's how this game is being played out moving forward, and not only in the 20th century, but moving forward in the 21st century. So when a lot of black people say that they're going to bleach out these people, I had laughed. What Frances Cress was said about the coloring and all that stuff, yeah, it had some relevance decades ago, but now how these people think, they don't care at this point because they already concluded that this so-called the tanning of America, or the so-called rise of Black Messiah, or the Black Planet, they already nipped in the bud, said that's not going to really destroy them. You get me? Because think about it.
I hear you.
You can think about it. And I never thought about this long term. And I listen to a lot of content creators, and this is why a lot of black people need to have foresight in everything they do, because it's always a power game. Everything you do moving forward, if black people don't understand, should be in a position to better facilitate the power of your race and possibly your nation. Computers don't do things in the sake of fun and game. They do it to facilitate the power and the continuation of the nation. And if they sit there, feel as though that you are able to come in the nation and copulate with them and create the byproduct of one nation and the other, they will still win. Because I tell people this: what happens to a child when they decide to go and don't want to procreate with you, and they have 50% of your genome? They're going to try to go whiter. And I've seen it done. I see the byproduct of a lot of children that are from two different racial parents, and they don't get blacker, bro. They get whiter. They try to go as far down the genetic pool as possible. And I think most black people, particularly black men, they're fine with that because they feel, and I say women too, the sister, but the same conversation as a people, they're fine with this because they feel going this route, there is safety, there's security. Erasing your genetic makeup that makes you the one thing that every other nation wants is your genetics. They need that 10, they need that 15 or more % black blood in them for just to survive in this earth, because this earth is not only getting hotter, but the resource is being eaten up and it's being abused.
Well,
so that's what I want to say.
Well, as Africa also expands as far as its population, they do not have the infrastructure. Right now, there are 1 billion people in sub-Saharan, throughout the continent of Africa, and there's supposed to be 2 billion in the next 40 years. So they are not having the resources, and they're not investing in their people the way they need to be the type of nations that can collection of nations that can support those people. And they cannot immigrate themselves away from their problems. And that's what the problem with a lot of the black immigrants. Europe, the United States, Canada cannot take enough people to improve your quality of life. You have to build the type of economic institutions, the social and educational institutions. You have to be able to self-sufficiently farm. You need to do all the things, banking and all that, required to bring your quality of life, because that's what their nation's doing. You don't see very many people leaving Iceland. Iceland has a population of 350,000 people. They have a $25 billion economy. Codfish, things like that. They have a 3-month growing season, and they're one of the pioneers in what they call hothouse farming, which is, we call them greenhouses here, because it's cold throughout the year. But they're not trying to leave. They got a good quality of life. They got a strong military. They got their own economy. They love in Iceland. But these small nations that they're overpopulated and they're poor, they need to address the fact that the more people you have sharing space, the harder it is going to be for you to provide for them. And what's happening is that advanced technology, people who are highly educated and have advanced technology, those are the ones that continue to rule the world. because you don't have to have the biggest military when you have the best technology, because wars are not going to be fought hand, that there are going to be a lot of technologies on that, and then things are going to be negotiated. When you're the big player, you don't even have to go, because once you hit, so the thing is, African and Caribbean blacks need to address the fact that why their nations continue to fail them. Why can't they have a good quality of life in Jamaica without leaving Jamaica? Because people in Kuwait have the kind of quality of life that they want without leaving to Kuwait. They don't have to go to Europe to become a doctor. Saudi Arabia, they don't have to go to Europe to become a doctor, to become an engineer, to become a teacher, to become an architect. Whatever they want to do, they can do in Saudi Arabia. And they have a viable economy that they have transitioned to be independent of oil, because they're investing in other resources. But that's not the case with Nigeria. And the reason I emphasize Nigeria, that's one of the largest economies. It's not very diverse. They gross $450 billion a year, but for 200 million people, that's not a lot. In the space of the state of Texas, Texas has about 29-30 million with a $1.3 trillion economy. So you got the same amount of space as the state of Texas, but you got almost 10 times the people, with 7 times the people, but you don't have the infrastructure, and you're not building it, and you're not going to be able to immigrate your way out of poverty. You're going to have to build the economic resources and institutions in your homeland to improve your quality of life. And that's how it's done. That's what Korea did. That's what Singapore did. That's what those former colonies did to build their way of life. And other places where they're building better countries, better nations, they're doing that. They'll go that first wave. They will go to a foreign country to get their education, but they'll build all that stuff there, and they'll pay professors over $100,000 a year to come teach at their schools, engineering, and they'll do those things and set it up in a nice house. So hopefully these immigrants will get the word, and they're not going to be they thought it was just Trump. I am confident of this. Over his administration, Biden is going to find some excuse to complete that wall. He's going to say, well, it's almost partially we're not trying to keep people out. We're trying to maintain the integrity of the nation. He's going to build that wall, and he's going to do a lot of the things that Trump's going to do, but he's not going to come out blatantly and mean about it, because they're already upset that he's saying that he was going to limit that refugee status type things. We can't rescue everybody. If we're going to heal and help Black Americans, we've got to put our attention on helping Black Americans first. And that's just like any family. If I say, for instance, if you're married and you get your check, you got a wife and 2 kids, right? When you get your check, and you might get it electronically, you take care of all of your home needs first for your wife and your children. Then if there's somebody that might need some help, you talk to your wife, say, well, their family needs some groceries for the weekend. We help them get some of their groceries. But you don't take all your money and help that other family before you've helped your wife and your children. And so what's happening, the U.S. is kind of overextending themselves, and these people who are coming here hand in hand, because they're not expanding our economy, they're taking away from it. So, and how did you kind of see that on that, Chaos? What was your view on that?
I totally agree that these people that's coming in here, they're not really putting anything back per se. They're just taking, assuming just like average Americans. And let's be honest, America is a capitalist system. They need producers and consumers. And the number one rule of capitalism, there has to be a seller and buyer. But I'll leave it at that. We got one last caller. Let me see who this is.
Okay.
All right, caller. I hope you're in line. Who's this?
Hey, Gary. Hello, guest. This is Gigi. How y'all doing?
Okay. I'm good.
Hello.
Hi. You were talking about the Chinese people, the Chinese men having children with the African women.
That was mentioned during the conversation. I think I might have said that. Well, actually, no. Ray, you did mention it briefly. I'm add more detail to that from what I'm knowing here right now about it. But what about it, Gigi?
Oh, because I mean, there are a number of complaints about these Chinese men abandoning these women, but I think most of them are making families with these women. Now, of course, they're only doing it as far as having rights to land and property and stuff, but they're still hanging in there. And what I'd like to say is if those women were already married, we wouldn't have this problem. I'm done.
Okay.
Do you want to add on to that, Ray?
I would like to add on to that. I think that this myth that the people from places like Africa, different nations, that they have these high marriage rates, and when they leave, come here, as far as, say, for instance, right now, people have talked about the 70% rate of out-of-wedlock birth rates in the U.S. by Black Americans. Well, Jamaica has the highest out-of-wedlock birth rate in the world at 86%. Haiti has had and maintains a 70% out-of-wedlock birth rate. A lot of these countries that they don't even have marriage bureaus. They don't do marriage licenses, and their divorces are not the same. So people will stay, quote, married, unquote, for years, but never live together, never consummate it again, and just drift out. So a lot of the laws that we have in Western nations are very different. But there's been a great deal of promiscuity when Jamaicans and Caribbean people go to Britain, Canada, their high out-of-wedlock birth rate remains the same. However, we've seen how a lot of people from West Africa, when they come to the U.S., they have, quote, multiple informal wives, families outside. So there's nothing that is enviable that we should be able to look at them and want to emulate. And you're right, if the women were not there, but as you're talking about, if the women were not single, the Chinese would marry them. But what you're talking about is that they are solidifying themselves economically to influence, because their children will become part of that elite. And that the biracial Asian children will either control that economy, which they will push in the favor of China, and they will also control some aspects of the politics of that. And these people are just not being wise, but who can tell them? And there was something you said earlier, Chaos. There was a brother named Kofi Annan who was from Ghana. He's passed on now a few years back. He was the UN executive director, and he's from Ghana. He was seeing how a lot of these West African countries were allowing China to go in to have, it's called unmarked mines or undisclosed mines, where they were taking a lot of natural resources out very rapidly, ruining the land, and they're not getting a fair wage for the commodities. So you have all these African nations, like the Congo, with all these wealth of natural resources, but they're poor because they don't manage those resources for the benefit of their people. But the African elites, man, they go to Europe on holiday. You remember how the Russian President Putin said how they go to Europe and buy with foreign aid like they had built those things themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the designers, their wives go to designers in Paris. They send their children to these private schools throughout the world. It's just amazing. But as we get back to it, it's important that we concentrate on Black Americans developing our best selves, reasserting ourselves politically to build the type of institutions and political infrastructure that will stand up for our best interest and not allow other people who do not understand us, who do not care for our needs and interests, to represent us. And that's what I'm concentrating on now.
Okay. And to answer that, Gigi, I'm be honest with you, Gigi, I'm just gonna give you a fair game. Other nations or groups of men don't seek an interest of marrying us, especially sisters like that, in numbers and droves. They only do it if they are going to benefit out the deal. And a lot of nations have studied black people, men and women, and they always think and always strategize how they could still use us without getting anything in return. It's beneficial for the Asian man to sit there and copulate with the African woman because the end game is he will get sole custody and rights to the land and resource of that nation. So, and mind you, what the Asians are doing right now, they're following the same playbook, for those who don't know, the same strategies that the European in Europe, England especially, back in the 15 or 1400s, and they just sent off criminals to go into other foreign nations to create colonies, territory, and send back the resource to their homelands, either from a queen or king or president, so they reap the benefits to further grow their own nations. And that game has always been consistent and has always been constantly going for the past 500 years now. And that's not going to stop in our lifetime or our children's lifetime unless enough black people, especially certain foreign blacks, if they're smart and they wake the hell up. And I'm going to say this for those that's going to be foreign blacks that's going to listen to this broadcast, this link broadcast. You have now learned from how your enemy has played the same chess game on you, like how they play the same chess game on black people that's here in America or the Caribbean. And I'm going to say this personally to those that are not aware. You have no friends, black people. And these nations know this. So the only thing they're going to do is they're going to be nice and friendly, and they're going to find ways to still get what they want without anything in return. See, if black people were so bold now and say that we want our reparations by any means necessary here in America, and we get it, and we do what's necessary to get it, I guarantee you all foreign blacks will have no choice but to go back home and get what's theirs. And the reason I'm saying is because they're followers. Only America, where they watch the black man and woman and see how they're able to accomplish and do either great things or little things on the press system that marginalize them, demonize them, and kill them in all forms. They wonder how this black man in this land that he don't control still able to manage and deal with the constant abuse and racism and still able to survive and do what he needs to do. They're baffled by this. That's why a lot of them not only come here to get the money, but they come to learn from us to take. They don't go back home and do what's necessary in their homeland. They come here to take, just like everybody else. And that's my last words I'm going to say. Any closing remarks, Ray? I think we have gone through this subject long enough.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me on that, man. I appreciate that. I just think, as you said, we need to really consolidate as our people. We're not indifferent or indignant toward anyone else. We just understand the importance of what our experience in history has been, and we have to work for our own best interest. If you're going to be allies with us, you're welcome. If you don't feel you want to be allies, you know, there's really, we really can't accept that way of looking at things. When you come to the United States, be allies, be friends. We can always use good allies, and we can also reciprocate that for you. But coming to be abusive or indignant toward black people, being condescending is not acceptable, and we would want to do that to you. But be our friends, be our allies, and you're welcome to come and, you know, be a part of society, understand the type of society that you're coming to, the type of nation, and be someone who is an asset to all people and be allies.
Excellent. I thank you, Ray Alexander, for being my guest on here. And one favorite request, if you could email me those links, I will put for people for further reading, if you can, if you can, for those that I will post that they want to look at the further research or anything from what is discussed tonight. So
I can definitely do that, and also email me the link to your Facebook so I can look at that because I've just been talking to you on the thing, so I didn't get to look at it at the same time.
I forgot to do the Facebook. But I'll do this because I will put this on my channel. Once it's done, I will email it if either on Facebook or pretty much on email once I've restructured this. You get me? So
okay.
Right.
Okay, cool.
All right. So thank you again, Ray. And hey, if any other things or any topic that I come across on other panels and stuff, and I'll just shoot you an email. We'll discuss it here. All right.
All right, Chaos. Good talking to you, man. Have a good evening. Take care.
Take care now. Thank you again, brother. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening to tonight's stream. If you missed it, please catch a replay of this. Also, you can now follow me on Facebook, Eric Rain, and you can follow me on Twitter at ChaosRain7. And there's other links. I probably will present the WordPress down the line. But we shall see. But I'd like to thank everybody for listening to today's broadcast. Be on the lookout for the next stream. Until next time, take care and good night.
I'd like to thank Ray Alexander to being a special guest on this stream. And like always, comment, subscribe, and like this video. You can now follow me on Facebook, titled Eric Rain. And you can follow me on Twitter at ChaosRain7 and all other media outlets. And to come, you'll find me also on WordPress as well. All that will be in the description. Until next time, let the chaos reign.